Okay, so this is week 5, and before we start, I just want to deal with the thing that we've got coming up in just 2 weeks now. I think it is week 5, isn't it? Which is the presentation and report. It's not accessible, but we're all going to sit around and listen to each other, so let's make it worthwhile. And I want you to feel some sense of accomplishment around it. What we are going to be, so what I've got here is I just want to go through what it says in the unit guide, because I'm not springing anything new on you. This is what you got even before you enrolled. And we can just talk it through and make sure everyone's comfortable with it and knows what it says, yeah? So, so week 7, practice, presentation or report, replicate a published study, find an article, replicate in R. The code should not already exist. By week 7, you should have identified the article, downloaded the data set, and conducted some preliminary univariate and bivariate analysis. I guess that's also going to include, which actually you're all finding, just working out what the hell is going on in my data, recoding it, etc., etc. The presentation in week 7 will be 12 minutes, and I would suggest you do some PowerPoint slides, a brief introduction. Please give us a brief introduction to the article and a preliminary analysis, including tables and figures, yeah? I want you to point out, come down to the bottom here for a second. One of the things about the marking criteria, one of the things about statistics is that it should sit in the background when we're as social scientists, you know. There is a real tendency, especially amongst academics, particularly graduate students, that, you know, the story that gets told is the woe is me. Oh my God, I did this gigantic data set. Oh, it was terrible. Da 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 da. Let me tell you about all these little bits of statistical this and that, right? But I think if you look at what a great social scientist does, is they connect with the audience with where the audience is at. And where the audience almost always is at is how does this matter to me and the wider world, basically, right? How does this matter to the things that I care about, right? And I know all of the topics you've all picked are about really interesting parts of the wider social world. And so I want you to practice that storytelling when you tell it. And I want you to move into that space, because it's often one of the hardest things as a researcher. We have to go down a lot of rabbit holes to get to telling a good story. But honestly, the audience doesn't want to know it. And I want to just, and I know that it's going to feel weird because you're doing a statistics course and all these sorts of things, but we will ask you questions about the statistics, and you will present the results and be able to show that you can understand it by presenting the results. But anyway, so are there any, let me just say, what questions do you have about that little aspect that I've emphasized? Does it make sense? Is it fair? Is it a fair thing to say? Okay, yeah.
So does it mean background theory is equally important as interpretation of the results?
I wouldn't say equally important. I think that you've only got 12 minutes, so it's only going to take a couple of minutes. But I would not ignore it. I've got to say that, it's more don't ignore it and continue it through the whole presentation. Right? Because it is, and I don't like it, but I say do think a bit like those a TED talk, not quite, like not all personal, emotional, sort of like my journey sort of stuff, but I think that the essence of good writing is writing to communicate with the reader, and it's the same thing with the presentation. Yeah, and as a teacher, it turns out one of the weirdest things that actually probably most of your teachers screw up, probably me included, is we actually don't know how to teach you. This is what a lot of the literature says. You learn how to teach yourself. But what we can do is motivate you to do the work required. And so a lot of the literature on teaching these days says that you've got to put about 25% of the effort into actually just explaining why the hell people should bother, doing all of this. And I think that's similar to with when you're presenting. Keep the big picture in mind, right? And then relate all the statistics to that. But the why are we here and why are we listening to you is super, super, super important. Yeah? And it's a good lesson for life in general. Does that make sense? So the report, it's just I just want you to upload a copy of the article, a link to the data set, a copy of the R code with brief annotations, and a short report of approximately 600 to 1,000 words with no more than 5 tables and figures. A few of the things that I've done here, this is very deliberately designed so it's not too much work for you. Like, I don't want you writing an essay. I don't need you to replicate the literature review, of this study. What I do want you to do is it's almost like the executive summary of a report. It's even shorter than that, than many of them. What I do really, really want you to do is get to the essence of it. So one of the things, again, that most people, actually, most academics, it takes about 10 years after they finish their PhD to realize this. But people want to know much, 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 much less than you want to tell them in general. And so I've said here no more than 5 tables and figures, and that's actually so I don't give you enough rope to hang yourself on as well. Yeah, it's really just simple, keep it brief. Anyway, I think I'm overstating it. Yes?
Is it also that they aren't necessarily the ones that are produced, or possibly the ones that are produced?
They should be the ones that are produced, but they don't need you. I'm fine with you taking the output of R and then putting it in Excel and cleaning it up and making it look nicer. Yes?
But with Salmon, we don't need multivariable.
No, you don't. So it could actually be, you actually really only need 2 tables here, a descriptive statistics and a correlation table.
Since regression is included in,
Sorry?
it's included in the original article.
Yes.
So for week 7, of 7, do we need to include?
No, you don't. That's exactly the idea. You don't need to get the regression in there, and I don't want you really. I just want you to talk about, what I want you to do is to talk about the what those statistical tables tell you about the questions that are raised by the article. So they'll tell you about the bivariate correlations. Yeah, the first 2. That's right, and interpret them. Yeah. Okay. And keep it short and simple. I mean, that's why it's only 600 words, yeah? 600 to 1,000 words. In terms of the marking criteria, I want you to motivate the audience, as I said. And a motivation is often about 2 things. Intellectual curiosity. So what's the academic question? What's the puzzle here? What's the idea that we don't know, the bit of knowledge that's missing? And then what's substantively important? How does this, affect things that we all love? It's pass the pub test. Second one, clear writing style. And I'm not teaching you how to write in this class, but remember, short sentences, a single coherent argument, easy to understand language, and each paragraph gets to make 1 point. Yeah, and that 1 point is in the first sentence. Yeah, it's called the topic sentence. So look, if you don't understand those concepts I've put there, or you don't believe them, I'm happy to give you a couple of really good articles on how to write clearly. Make sure the tables look professional. I don't just want screenshots of like R output that is more ugly R output. We're teaching you how to do quite nice stuff here. You can do screenshots, but please make them look like they would in an academic article, just because that's what's expected. You know, you're all graduate students, you don't have to do this sort of stuff for work. Yes? Oh no!
Yeah, but we should do this double regression table, which is copying your very function where your personal experience you copy and put in the web rather than screenshot.
Well, what I mean is, okay, yeah, I'll explain. I'll give an example of what not to do and what to do. Can I get? Sorry, I'll be clear about it, right? Don't do a screenshot of something like this. Don't go screenshot that, right? But a screenshot like, this is actually a screenshot I've got up here. A screenshot like that, I mean, that's a bit too, it's too small, but because that's all of the offences that Young has taken on. But that sort of a screenshot, but slightly more readable, is fine, you know. Or again, these are a bit small, but that's ugly. Don't do that. But something that looks like this, but that is probably a bit bigger. Yeah, that's right. This is overkill. That's nice. Yeah, screenshot that. Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep. So yeah, the analysis should be a replication. One of the issues that came up, I've got no interest in hurting you, right? And I don't, or torturing you. And so Milena had a case where it's some of hers, she has to do a huge amount of cleaning up, and some of the variables are constructed in quite complicated manners. It's a big data set. If you're finding that the cleanup process is just killing you, and it's like, you know, you've actually got to compress 200 variables down to 20 or something like this, what I'd like you to do is say, pick the 10 most important that you're going to construct. You know, some important controls, some important test variables. I want you to do some work, but I don't want you to, you know, hurt yourselves, really. And also the other one is, if you can replicate it, it depends a little bit on the data set, right? So some people have been able to download the data set that was cleaned up by the authors, right? And therefore they don't need to do almost any data cleanup. Other people have had to go and get the original, you know, general social survey and then do a huge amount of cleanup on that. And yeah, so if in the end, if you could do 10 variables and replicate the broad outlines of the analysis, I would be perfectly happy. You can still get a high distinction. Yeah? Yes.
Is it only for week 7 or
both? I mean, I want you to do work, right? If you get up and say, I could only get 10 variables done, and it's like, actually, the others are really simple, I'll be like, what are you doing? But, you know, if it really is like, I'll give an example. Milena's data set has got just one variable. They take 10 variables, they do a factor analysis of it, they take the first component, they compute the first factor of that, and then make the variable out of that. You will actually be able to do that eventually, but it's a big challenge, especially when you've got to do that with another 15 variables, create another 15 variables like that, and they all involve cleaning up the don't knows and getting the directions correct, and you know, the NAs and all that. It just starts to become a bit much. Okay. Anyone else on this? Yes.
is this
to 1,000, 600 to 1,000 words.
Is that also a track test, or does it count as part of the assessment?
Yes, it's all practice. It's all this. So the way I'm going to grade it is I will give you a grade. I will give you a grade on the overall thing, both the presentation and the thing. I'll tell you what you get, but it won't count for anything for this time.
Okay. So even if it's not used the right line?
Yes. Because I have to. The course outline or the unit guide is the contract between us, so I can't change it now. Anyone else? Anything else? Is this useful and clear? Was this useful? No? Yes? Okay. We're going to start by doing a little bit of an analysis just on I'll just show you where we're going today with the class, and then we're going to do a little. So today, this is wrong. Somehow this didn't up. Oh, this is an older version of it. Sorry, I apologize. There we go. So Milena came up with a very useful question about how to recode data. I just want to show you this. Say you've got to recode dummy data for a dummy variable from your, and in this case what I've done is taken country of birth from the election data, and this is a frequency table. You can see it here. The way you would do it is you first generate new variables for each of the dummies that you want. So I've created dummy variables here, and then I've recoded them with this code here. There's a few, I think if I just, do you want me to just do it in R and show you how it works, or is it going to take too long? Huh?
I don't think you need to create new variables because you just drag. There will be a movement.
Yeah, but what name will it have? It'll have it. You can't rename it whatever name you want to give it. That's my understanding. You can only specify the suffix. There's not actually a rename, and this really does. This command works. This is road tested. So the key thing is, if I could just talk through some of the things that it does. So this copies across the old variable, and it's all the same thing in this. It's just created a new one. And then in here, what I've done is taken the value so in this case 1 is Australian born, so 1 is 1, NA is NA missing, and everything else is equal to 0. Append means that it attaches the old variable to the new one, and suffix means without the suffix it's actually the same variable. So the way that this recode works is that generally if you don't put suffix in there or you specify a suffix, it creates a new variable. Like we'll normally call it like R_D_Australia, right? And then stick it in there, so then you'll have two variables, which gets messy, right? Often you just want to change the variable. So this changes the underlying variable, puts it into there. And then it does the same. These are all the same except this recodes 2 as 1, so which is from New Zealand. This recodes 3 as 1, which is from the UK, and 4 as 1, which is from Ireland. And everything else is made into a 0 except for the missing values. Does that make sense? Does it? And I think the other thing here that I think is very useful is using the frequency function, which is from summary tools. It is just very good for just checking your data all the time. Check it before you've done the recode and after you've done the recode to check that you've done the right thing. And how do you do the double check? Look here. So frequency, country of birth, value 1, there are 2,819 here. And look at number 4, this is Irish. There are 10 Irish people. I'm Irish about 150 years ago. And 218 for this one where we've looked at Australia and Ireland. There are 10 people. So you know you haven't screwed up. Yep. And there are 160 NAs, 160 NAs, and 160 NAs. Yep. Is that useful? And the thing I will say is that every time I get a specific question from one of you, which it actually is incredibly useful because it makes sure that it can help bring all of the stuff that I'm teaching into one example, and I try and share it back with you. So please don't hesitate to contact me during the week. I really, at any stage, send me a data set, send me screenshots, all that, we'll fix it up. We can solve it. Yep. And it just makes me a lot better as a researcher, I've got to say. So don't hesitate. So what are we going to do today? Today it's straightforward and I think unbelievably useful. We're going to look at cross tabulations, which we use summary tools for. We're going to do comparison of means, which are a very basic test that sometimes you want to do. We're going to learn about correlation coefficients and then visualization of the matrices of correlation coefficients. The more I teach this statistics and social science, the more as I go, I'm constantly in this tension, I have to say, between how much maths do I teach and how much maths do I avoid, how much, at what level do I pitch a lot of these lectures. And I think the place that I'm coming to is that my job is to teach you, as social scientists, we understand a lot of the underlying statistics as metaphor. I was looking up, for example, just ordinary least squares regression, and the actual underlying maths to be able to do that is like quite complex levels of a linear algebra just to work out how to estimate it. But it's one of the simple models we run. So if you, and also people here are going to have different levels of taste around the maths as well. So if you want to ask questions around it, I'm really happy to also sit down with you and go through it. I remember I was at Oxford, just to tell you, this is how it was. I worked with some people who have tens of thousands of citations. We were trying to interpret a logistic regression. We went to the Stata handbook or the internet and looked up what the equation was for logistic regression. Right? It was like, so that as social scientists, that's what we do. We don't memorize all this stuff. We don't memorize all the R code, or anything like that. We eventually can remember how to do the R code, and we eventually remember some of the statistics but it is a funny place we occupy here, where we really rely on hardcore mathematics and statistics, but there is no way that we can possibly master it all to the level of being able to write the programs. Or if we could master it for one of them, not the 50 different programs we need to use or packages that we need to use. Yes? Okay, so let's go through this. The exercise at the end, if we have time, I just simply want you to try to generate a table and a plot using the correlation coefficients of some of your data, and maybe then play with the graphical settings to see how you can actually change some really nice things in there. What questions do you have at this stage? Okay, does everybody have R open on their computer? Does anyone not have R open on their computer? Can everyone, okay, so let's go to the first part today, crosstabs. I want you to, can everyone please run this? I've added a few more packages. If everyone can just run this first set of code. I'll pass and tell me if you have any errors. And I'll pass around. Today, green is yellow and red is orange. That's kind of funny, isn't it? Does anyone here have root canal? Does any family have root canal? And expensive. How much do they buy?
Should go to Thailand.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah,
Should go to Thailand.
Really?
Yeah,
I know.
I told you.
Yeah.
Cool.
no, actually everything that I do
Yeah,
is very
of course.
excellent quality and the price
If
is
you don't know, you
wonderful.
Okay. Please put up a yellow sticker if you have got it installed. Please put up an orange sticker if you haven't got it installed. And I really want to ask you to give feedback later on these at the end of the class if you can. Okay. So yellow. Well, yellow or orange? Yellow. We're all yellow. Awesome. Okay. So let's start. So I have got this data set here, elect 2013. One thing, if you want to understand about what's in the data set, I've created a new appendix called practice data. So that's an easy place to find the code book for it. But anyway, so let's just select this and we will run this code here, the code below it as well.
Would you like us to use our own data set or?
I want you to just use this to start off with so that we can we can all be doing the same thing, and then we can work out what's going wrong. My computer is slow today. I think I have just come on. Did it work for you? We're working on this one here. This is the data set we're going to load. That's the data set. I'm just going to kill my R session, R studio session. Okay, that's great. Did you run did you run the setup summary tools?
I also got an error in library summary, not a package called summary.
Oh, okay, I know what's happened. So I made a mistake in some of the code. If you should try and use this one because some of the code I put up last week, it said if requires summary tools, and then it loaded SJMISC. So I would imagine that's what you've got there. So let me load all this. So did you run this? Okay, I will just come have a quick look. Boom. So this is what this is what I've got. Can I have stickers down? And I want yellow up if you got this, and red if you didn't.
I'm fine with data set.
What do you mean? No,
Which one?
It's actually there.
It comes up in
This is just.
So then go down and just go put on the library summary for us. That is update packages. Dom packages. Everyone else, is anyone else already to go? Who? Oh, yeah,
Quite a few of you have got this. Quite a few of you have got a funny error. It should what you're getting. This is what I think will be the solution. Do install dot packages. Can you see that? I'll make it bigger.
install all the packages before running.
No, they did. They did. It's not that. It's really weird. What it is, it's sometimes that the dependencies doesn't work for some reason. So just try install packages, and then what's it called? It's called xrun. Xcrun. I'll just make this bigger. Sorry. Xcrun. Do that. Install packages. And there's another one as well, right? Install.packages tclck. now try to do library XC run library tclck, and then the library, then install packages summary tools. Oh, it says they're not available. What version of R are you running? Oh, R. Okay, I don't know, and I did it work. Did it work for you when you ran those things or not? Okay, it worked for you. It worked for you. It worked for you. Worked for you. Worked for you. Not working for you. You got the same problem.
This one. I think this might be the reason. There's another thing you can download and install. And when it's needed, it will run automatically. Before I got a problem. Access cards. Just Google the name and if you have this one. Sorry. And you need to install them together, and it will be started automatically if this is needed. Because I don't really have our IC run as a package, so.
Did it work? Did it work for you too? No, not at all. You're both.
I got enough money. Probably said
Okay. Okay, I think I think you need to install Xquart. So, what is so? That is like where I don't know Xquart.
I don't know what does that do, but
Okay, so you've got to both install. Okay, so that's a Mac thing. We've solved two out. Now it's working. What is Xquart? Something you just download from the internet?
yeah, you just Google the name and there should be a website.
Okay.
The official website.
So what I would suggest for yours, if we could just, we try and just Google what you should do. I'll teach you how to solve the problem. So go to your error message. Select that.
Yeah. Oh, it's cheaper from the West League.
Yep. Copy.
It's cheap to fly from Mexico, Iceland, to Colombia, and South America to Colombia. Maybe in a different trip, like go to Mexico, or the US State, or some countries like that. Although it's not
Finally, coding.
That's the same in like ex-Soviet countries, people English very well. Yeah. Yeah, I think part of the asking was about travel. Yeah.
So did you get more? Still loading? Still loading. Okay, that's good. I can't believe it. We can solve problems. File. Huh? So everyone, the way literally, so both of your errors, what did I said? Oh yeah, I just put install packages XC run summary tools. So what I did was I looked back when the error messages came up. It often says that there's some dependencies that won't work. And so I just went back and looked for those and I put them in the search. But actually the best way to do it is this. You literally just grab the error message, copy, paste, and then you look, then Stack Overflow is always the best. Check package XX is not available. And then when you look just to show you Stack Overflow, they have people get to an up arrow if they like the answer. So generally, this is the question, and this is the answer. So it's the tick means that this was the answer accepted by the poster. And so it says, I tried to install the package install foobar bars. That's actually just a bullshit name, right? So that's not actually a real package. Warning, package foobar is not available for version 3.6.1 or whatever it is, right? Why doesn't it see also these questions, which is referring to the specific answers, and then it says down here, firstly, you can't spell, you need to spell it correctly. 2, you didn't look in the right repository. Set repository. This is hilarious. This is literally like 3, the package is not in the repository, you selected. 4, you don't want a package. You really don't want a package. There's been a package in a library. R or bioconductor is out of date. The package is out of date. There is no Winix, OS X, Linux support for that. But this is hilarious. The package is on GitHub. There are no. So this is actually like this is a generic if you have errors. Anyway, but yes, that's what you do. So I think have you tried? Is yours working or not? No. So what it is that file. Yours said file encoding RCSV. Okay, do you want to try spelling it with a capital UTF-8? Yeah? Is yours capitalized, UTF-8? Okay, what I can do, I'll do something else actually. What I'll do is I'll just save that as a I'll give you another link as well. Okay. So if you want to download, you can all do this. If you want to download a labeled version of it, so change this to SAV and change this to read_SPSS and also put before this SJ labeled : So what this is, so these are all of the data sets that I've uploaded for you that are going onto there. So I just looked and saw what was there. elect_SAV is the SAV is a SPSS format. So this will go there and do it. So it's, yeah, that's right, similar to yours. Now, what I've done here, let me just make sure this code works, hang on. Oh, it does, yeah, okay. So, this here is the package name. Now, Young and I debate a little bit. I sort of at some level believe that we should just do that for all of our code. So before every command, you should put the package name : The reason is that there are about probably 5 or 6 different read SPSS commands written for different R packages, which is generally fine if you've only uploaded one package, but you can upload, you can actually have already installed, for example, Haven, and then you'll run the wrong one. Generally not a problem, but sometimes it screws it up. So this just tells it where to look. Does that make sense? Does it? Good? Did it work for you? Did it work? No? No. I've done a new one for you. This one.
You know, package before in order to do that.
Pardon?
If you already put it before, you know, actually do that one.
Yeah, it's just that this is more specific. Yeah. Like Because I'll give another example. It turns out that there is like a describe. In both, I think, summary tools and SJ-MISC. Huh? Yeah. It's much more, this is kind of like, so they call it bulletproof. I know it's not bulletproof code. What's the name for it for coding? It's like, that's it. And everyone, woo! All right, they're all cooking. And have you got Xcords? Yeah. It's still downloaded, or is it downloaded? Is it done? Okay, so we're all green tags or yellow tags. Ha! Awesome. So next, everyone run this command here, print C table, yeah? And what it should do is it will open your default browser. Error, could not find function C table. What have I done? Oh, maybe I... Summary tools. No, we're just practicing today. So just go like this. I'll show you what you can do with this. So it goes like that. Now, one of the things we're going to learn about today is that there are really two ways that R gives us really beautiful tables and graphs, right? One of them is a HTML output like this, which is like HTML being a web page. And the great thing about this is that you can cut and paste it into Excel, and the numbers are real numbers and so forth. You can use it wherever you want to use it, or pages, whatever you use. The other thing that R does is it produces graphics, which have the advantage that they're sexy, right? They've got colors, they've got movement, they've got, pictures, all this sort of stuff. But they are pixels. And because they're pixels, and so you could get something like this as a table, and it would be all colorful and so forth, but you could never cut and paste it into Excel. And when it's pixels, the thing that happens is that there's pretty much nothing you can do except import it into Paint or some Microsoft Paint or something if you want to change it, yeah, which becomes very cumbersome. When you've got this, the thing you can do is you can hack your way through to a presentation that you're in a hurry for, right? Because you can cut and paste it, clean it up in Excel. You're all probably quite good in Excel, yeah? So, no. No. Okay, just what I would do, just so you know, is I would literally copy. This is not in the guide, but I would copy, I would go into Excel. That's the cost of my partner's, that's the rebates for my partner's root canal. And that's another reason I was late today. Right click, and then you can do two types of paste. If you don't know, there's paste where you keep the source formatting, or paste where you match the destination formatting. I tend to use the second one. This is called paste values. It looks ugly at this stage, but you can do a lot more with it, right? In Excel. This has got a bit yucky on us, where it's picked the breaks. One of the things you can also do, I'll just show you this Excel functionality. I'm going to undo that. Whoa! One quick bit of Excel functionality that I think is pretty amazing. if you go into, say, I often use Notepad to strip formatting out of anything. So, you know, that's on Windows, but you should have a similar sort of thing. If you paste into Notepad, what happens is that nothing else is left, which sometimes that's all you want. So then you cut it, paste, cut it out of, ooh. I'll paste it here. Ah, I hate you. I'm trying to do something special and it's not letting me. It's not letting me. Okay, anyway, what I want to show you is that there is a function in Excel that is quite powerful. Text to columns. This is not behaving itself. Sorry, I'll pick something else so that you can see it. This is quite uglier. I know what I'll do. If you'll let me just jump ahead, I will run a bit of code that will that can illustrate this point to you all. What are you doing? Sorry, everyone. So this is a gigantic, horrible table in R, well, not in HTML. Don't know what this is working. That has still done it nicely. It keeps working too well for me. It's not doing what I wanted to do. I will. Anyway, the point is, if you had something in here that went F, comma D, comma G, blah 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 blah, right? And you had it pasted down here, and it was all in one column. You can go text to columns and pick delimited, in this case, and tell it that it's all separated by a comma, and it will make it into its own columns, which is a unbelievably powerful tool. Do you get it? Yeah, sure, no worries. So, so here we've just got, these could say all different things. They don't need to be the same, but but basically, you'll often get data that is output by various different things that is not behaving nicely, but there is some sort of pattern you can see in it. And there are two main patterns you can generally see. One is a common delimiter, and the other one is that there's even spacing. Somehow just the spaces always line up, right? And you can use one of those two things with this Excel function. So you've pasted it all into one column here, you select the whole column and you go to text to columns, hit, and then you've got to choose delimited or fixed width. I'll show you what fixed width is like. Oh, I'll do delimited first. Hit next, and then you could choose what the divisor is. So I could say, oh, my divisor is going to be F, and then I'll put a few columns in like that, right? But I'm actually going to make the divider comma, and then it knows where it's going to put them, and finish. Boom. Yep, so it's just the text to columns. Yep. The other one it can do is can just go for text to columns, fixed width, and then you can tell it where to break. So you can just pick, I want to break it there and there and there. And then next, finish, and we'll break it up. That is, yeah. Is that useful? Okay, and half of you probably know it. Okay, so let's go back to the class. So we are on crosstabs, and we've just run the first command. Let's keep going and just start running these different ones. The big one here is that, so this next one is we've got a variation between row percentages and column percentages. So this one will produce column percentages with C, and this next one here will produce percentages of all of them. So the thing that often you have when this is a social science tip, when you look at a table and you're like, oh, percentage, most of people initially will read it the wrong way, right? So you will go, 1% of all people with zero political knowledge have a one of a political, whatever that is, the one likelihood to vote. So no, what you always should do is look at the end of the columns under the totals, because where the columns add to 100, that's where you can actually talk about it as a proportion of that. And yeah. So this is only of 10%. What this one is doing is the 100% is in this corner, which is the sum of all these totals and all these totals. So you know that of all the people in the data set, 1.3% of them have a political knowledge of 0 and a likelihood of voting of 1. Yeah, they occupy that cell. So, and if you go back and look at the different ones, here, this one, you go, oh, is that 40% of political knowledge 0 or 40% of likelihood vote? Oh, here we go, 100% is at the bottom. So that means that of the people who have a likelihood voting of 1, which I think is no way, they have 40%. They don't know when that's a 0 in that 10-point quiz. They don't know who the treasurer is, when Australia was founded, how the Senate is elected, like none of these things. Who the Prime Minister is, who won the last election, what country they're in, Austria. What did you say? That's right. Anyway, yes, got it? Good. Next, so then we can actually change it. So if we put prop n in there, we can get rid of all the percentages. And the other thing is this is still an ugly, ugly table, right? So what do we want to get rid of? Look at this. You want to get rid of the title and all this. And we want to get rid of the NAs and the totals. So this is a nice one that I've made where I just got rid of everything we didn't want. And so maybe just to test it, why doesn't everyone run this one? One thing, if you are running using this button here, run, you are wasting seconds of your time. Control or Apple and enter. And actually you can select anywhere in here. I've only selected one line, but I think RStudio can tell that these are all connected lines. Control, enter, boom, it ran the whole thing, done. Yeah? Just who uses control, enter, or command, enter? Do you use command, enter? Command, enter?
Well, I wasn't using run until now.
Ah, now, very good. Command, enter. Can you use command, enter? Why not?
I just know.
You know now. Very good. Okay. It does make your life a lot easier. Okay, can I have pink or orange? We all good? Just you can chuck it up. Is there any oranges? No? Okay, we're all good. Let's go. Push on.
I think I find it more helpful with the percentages though to read.
Oh, sure. So, okay, now challenge. Do you want column percentages or row percentages? Or total percentages? Because therefore, we can just say, okay, challenge. The challenge is make this one, but with the percentages you want. What would you change? See, reading this code here. See, that you've got this in your thing there now? What would you do? Set it to your favorite. Column percentages, row percentages, total percentages.
On receive.
Often it's true. You want to depend on what point you want to make. Yeah? Is it the people who don't vote don't know anything, or are the people who don't know anything don't vote? Good? Did you do it? Emma?
Yeah,
So you just put a C here. Yeah, that's right, exactly. Boom. There we go. Okay, very good. End of lesson. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to 5.2. So same setup. This is a comparison of means. So when we do a comparison of means, we're constantly asking. There's two different tests we run, right? One is on when it's two separate groups, and one is when it's on the same set of people who are measured twice. So if I divided this room into two lots of 4, and that would be called an independent and measured how many coffees you had today, then we would have an independent samples t-test, right, which is the first type we're going to be running. If I measured how many coffees you had today on a Monday versus how many coffees you had on a Sunday yesterday, that would be a paired samples t-test. It just turns out that the amount of information and the amount of information that can vary is means that the statistics is different. The main way you can just understand it is that the sample of you yesterday and you today actually has a whole lot in common, right? It's controlling for a hell of a lot, and so therefore the statistical tests are different, and the p-values will be different. Does that make sense? I mean, you can look up the exact maths, but that's not important for us. So let's do one. This one we're going to compare. So what we have here, I'll make this bigger. What we have here as a command is let's compare the political knowledge of men and women. So I think we already know this because you pointed it out. And actually, I knew this once. Well, last year when I found my notes to this weekend, I'm like, oh, did I get it right? So you get this output. It looks like this. And it's like, ugh. It looks kind of ugly. But it's not as bad as it seems. The main thing, remember, rule number 1 when you're reading statistical output is look at the p-value. Yeah. Right? There's one exception to that. When you're looking at a regression table, there are multiple different p-values, and we're generally not talking about the p-value for the model, we're talking about the p-value for the item. But in this case, there's one p-value. The other thing is that often it's not called p-value. Often the output in R is called sig, SOG or something. That's the p-value. Anyway, it's going to be less than, and it's a number. This is highly significant, right? So the difference between men and women, there's almost no chance it happened by chance. And then we have mean. The next thing we can look at in this are two things. We can look down here, mean for group 0 and mean for group 1. So, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, who's zeros, who's ones? Do you remember? I think 0 is men. Oh.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think one is man. 0 is
Zero was
Zero, no?
yeah, because what the opposite?
It was the opposite, wasn't it? 1 is women, 0 is men.
Oh,
No, one is man.
that is man. That wasn't the.
But it wasn't, but men was going higher. I don't know. I threw my hands in the air. We can go look at the code book, but I don't even trust the code book. It doesn't really matter. The point is the group 1, which we'll call female, I think. Oh, it is. So this is variable female. So 1 is female in this one, right? So female, so it's different to gender in the original data set, I think. So female is a 4 point, because I coded it. Right, so female is got 4.2 out of 10 in the quiz, and men got 5.3. Right? Great. The other thing it gives you is the 95% confidence interval, which is between 0.88 and 1.2. So that tells you, what does that tell you? I should shut up and not explain it. What does that confidence? Yep.
It's like, oh crap.
Oh crap. My voice.
And it's between, it's 95% confident that it's between, that 0.88 and is it 1.2?
The what is actually. The what is.
Between.
So,
The
can you ask again the question?
what does. Okay, I can ask you. I want to know. So okay. What does this confidence interval mean? What does that 0.88, 95% confidence interval? 0.88, 1.2. It is actually, it is related to these things. Almost. No, okay. Let's go. This is really good revision. Inferential statistics is about making inferences about the sample mean. No, the population parameter. Correct. Right. So we are 95% confident that, well, we have. Yeah, it is. It's basically 95 out of 100 cases of the true population mean. Redoing this would find. There are lots of different ways to express it, but the main way to say it is that the population parameter lies within. We are 95% confident the population parameter lies within these two. The true population parameter. Yes? And the difference between these is the point estimate of that actual. So we should get a line properly in the middle of it. Yeah? Good?
Is that mean or
Which one?
the population parameter?
The population parameter is the difference of the means in this case. So the difference of the means is the difference between women and men's quiz scores.
So, for example, where it says here it's like roughly 1.1 is the difference or something.
Yes, that's right.
And then so it's 95 out of 100 cases the difference between 0.88 and 1.2.
That's right. Exactly. The true problem. We are. Yes. There is a yes. And that is another way of expressing that the chance that the population parameter is 0 the chance that the actual mean is 0 is that as a proportion, which is tiny. Yes?
Can we say will increase score by according to
We don't know, it's not causal, we don't know what direction it goes, but I guess the quiz score doesn't make you female. But so it's not in that direction, but there could be some other factors, right? It could be that a sexist society that gives women a double shift, or gives people double shifts, you know what I mean, makes people do worse on the quiz, yes?
So it's just saying that if you infer, like if everyone in the world did this, then the difference 95% of the time would be between those two.
Almost, but is our what's our population in this case? Everyone in the world?
Well, the whole population of
Australia. Because it's a random sample of Australians between the ages of 18 and older. Yes, exactly. So if that's a good way to put it. So if we were to survey Australians, all Australians, we are about 95% sure that it would lie between. There's a 5% chance it would not come between these two. Yep. Good. Good. So, straightforward. We can compare it, do a paired dependent samples test. So in this case, we are going to compare. What is it? It's how much. It's a score on following election on TV. It's like, how much did you follow the election on TV? Every day, once a week, couple of times a week, once a week, less than once a week, never, right? And so we're going to compare those TV and newspaper following. So let's just copy it and paste it in. Yes, and run. And it says there is a very large difference. I'll just find the notes. It can be read in the same way as the previous test, except in this time it only reports the mean differences. It means that it turns out that the way that, some of these are a little bit complicated, but it takes... So yeah, so one of the things that's annoying about this is you're like, which one did it take away from which? You're like, I don't know. So what I did is check. So I've gone here and I've said, okay, let's look at the average score people gave for election TV, 2. Election newspaper, 2.4. So people have an average score of 2 on election TV and 2.4. So the difference is it is higher. That means it's higher for newspaper or lower for TV. Fine. Good. I just wanted to show you this because this is the very basic, some of the very basic statistical tests for bivariate stuff in R. Yep. We good? Well, it doesn't necessarily, because as you've been learning, you need to look at the code book. So let's go look at the code book. So practice data. Scroll down to code book HTML. I know there is actually an error in this code book. So here we go. So higher means less. So people read the newspaper less than they watch TV. I guess that's pretty obvious. True. Right? So actually, people The average was a sum for TV, and somewhere between some and not much for newspapers. Yep. Good? Okay. And a good lesson in why we always need to go and check our... Okay, now we're starting to get onto the exciting stuff. So, it turns out, so crosstabs, very useful for showing things once in a while, right? Often crosstabs can also be expressed in various graphs, which we'll learn more about in later weeks, which you've already learned a lot about from young. But you can also, but it turns out that the most common way that we look at bivariate relationships is a correlation coefficient. The big one that we almost always use is Pearson's. Turns out Pearson's got lots of errors, and it's made lots of, and it's like, well, it's got lots of errors, but it doesn't work in lots of circumstances. So there are a whole variety of different measures that are used. However, most of the time, if you actually look at academic articles, they'll just report Pearson's correlation coefficients. Because sometimes it's better the devil you know. You know, it's sort of like your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever. You know, they're not perfect, but at least you know what's wrong with them, right? You don't know what you've got with the next one. So, and that's certainly the case with why Pearson's tends to be reported, and often why sometimes simple statistics are better than complicated statistics. Yep. It's like you know all the ways that someone can bullshit you with simple statistics. So a correlation. What is a correlation? So note there is a difference between these two. It's a Pearson's correlation, which is or Pearson's R. They're the same thing. That is one type of correlation, but there is this general thing called correlation coefficients. And to give you a few others, there's a Spearman. I use in my research on social networks is one called tetrachoric, and there are a whole lot of variety of different correlations. All of them have these real themes, almost all of them anyway. They measure the relationship between two variables. They are standardized.
So that's the reason that when you look at papers, a lot of them say standardized correlation.
Coefficient. That's right. Why do they say standardized? So standardized is used for other things as well. So you might get standardized beta coefficients for a regression. That's a slightly different one. But in this case, yeah, they're standardized, which means that the units of analysis don't change. Like if you measure something in kilometers or meters or millimeters or years or coffees or whatever, standardized means it doesn't change. Yeah. The perfect positive correlation is 1, a perfect negative correlation is -1, and no relationship is 0. Yeah? So, I think we're clear. Just remember that one of the things that people get confused about is 0 means nothing is happening. In the middle is nothing happening. 1 is if A goes up, B goes up. And -1 is if A goes up, B goes down. Yeah? So long as you've coded them correctly. So I'm going to talk very, very briefly about the two elements of correlation. They're not complicated, but they can scare people, and I just want to point them out so you understand the underlying concept. Again, this is analogy, and the maths doesn't know it could bullshit you. First of all, what is covariance? Covariance is it's basically the average amount that two items vary from on each person. How much does it vary from the mean? So it turns out that I think weight and height is a good one, right? They sort of are broadly correlated in this world. They're not completely correlated, but they're broadly correlated, weight and height. Yes? And the way that we can say that weight and height are correlated in terms of covariance is this simple equation here. We can say, so for one person, their weight minus the average school weight, so we're talking about a school here, and say we're going to data set on a school, times their height minus the average height in the school, gives you a number called the covariance. And you can imagine if someone is at the average weight and at the average height, this is going to be a 0, this is going to be a 0, right? If they're below the average weight and below the average height, then this is going to be minus something, say minus 10 centimeters times minus 5 kilos. But actually that's varying together. So 2 minuses multiplied make a plus, right? So actually, and that's what you would expect. That's a positive correlation. Low weight, low height. And the same thing at the other end, right? So if someone is 5 kilos heavier and 10 centimeters taller, then that is going to be 5 by 10 centimeters, 5 kilos by 10 centimeters. And it's a positive correlation as well. Yeah? Whereas if they go in the opposite direction, so that one varies from the mean in one direction and one varies from the mean in the other, it's actually negative. Yeah?
So someone with like quite short but also much heavier.
That's right, or very tall and very light.
Yes.
Exactly. That breaks, those people break from it, and therefore their covariance is negative. They're very, yep. Now what we do, the word covariance actually for a data set refers to the average covariance, right? So if we take, so my covariance on weight and height from the mean in this room, I don't know what it is. You know, I'm heavy and tall, right? So maybe mine is going to be positive, right? But we do that for everyone, average it, and that will be the average covariance for the data set. The problem is that if you think about it, what's the unit of analysis for covariance in that example? It's centimeter kilos. What the hell is that, right? And the problem is that covariance on its own is measured in whatever the hell the units are that you're measuring things in. And we don't like that generally because it's a mess. So what we need to do is standardize. And statisticians have got this way of doing standardization that ends up coming up again and again and again and again and again and again and again throughout everything. And the reason it comes up so much is because it's so awesome, right? So Z scores and everything, like lots and lots of things, standardized betas. But actually underlying them all is this very, again, I think, useful and relatively straightforward, though not necessarily intuitive concept. I'll just push this across, sorry. Not necessarily intuitive concept. The idea is that the standardized value equals I'll put it here. I'm going to subtract the mean of each case and divide by the standard deviation. The standardized x is the mean minus x for that case divided by the standard deviation of that. This is the way of standardizing one particular, just one variable. So this would be a way of standardizing weight or standardizing height, right? So all of a sudden my height from the average in the room may not be 20 centimeters, it might be 1 standard deviation. Yep. And that is particularly useful because it basically means that everything in the whole world, numbers of pets, number of nuclear bombs, number of anything, can actually be measured in standard deviations. Yep. So why do we do these different things? We subtract the mean because if we subtract the cases from the mean, the average across all the cases is 0. So it makes a mean of 0. So this bit just is to make the mean 0. And we divide by the standard deviation because it makes everything the same units of analysis. Number of pets, number of people you've killed, same units of analysis. Dark humour today. Are we good? Is this pink and orange? No, yellow or orange? Yellow. Good. All right. Is this good revision though? Is it useful revision? Because I mean, honestly, I emphasize this stuff because it's sort of the stuff that they'll go over. You'll do first year statistics, right? And they'll do this in about 10 minutes somewhere in week 2. And it's like, no, actually, I think this needs to be just constantly returned to and reinforced because as social scientists, this thing is something that hits us over and over again on the head. Yep. Okay, so we have this standardization, and when statistical packages give us a number, including a correlation coefficient, so we're moving on a bit now. So we're going to get given a number, right? So the correlation just a second. So the correlation coefficient, sorry, I should back up, is that covariance, but measured in standard deviations of covariance, basically. Yeah, I mean, and so it varies from 1 to -1. I mean, it's not quite that because it actually doesn't measure just standard deviation, but it's completely standardized, basically, so that no matter what you measure it in, correlations go from 1, which is perfectly the same, to -1. It turns out one of the weird effects of that in a correlation coefficient is that, oh no, I'm not going to go into it. The main thing we need to do as social scientists is read those the output, and there's different ways. Like I said, there's 2 here. Last week I think I said there's 3, right? One of you can read 3 things: significance, sign, and magnitude, right? But this week I'm going to talk about significance and importance. So we ask, is it statistically significant? Which we measure with p-values on those confidence intervals. And then we ask, is it important? Which we call effect size. And it turns out we're going to start talking about standard deviations again there as well. So how do we read significance? You know this. With p-values, the main thing to ask is that, is the p-value less than 0.05? This is just the standard set by convention, but it means that there's a 5% chance this happened by chance. Remember that there is a set of standard symbols for these. So actually a plus symbol is p less than 0.1, or 10% chance you're wrong, a plus. A star is 0.5, 0.05, 2 is 0.01, at 1%, and 3 stars is 1 in 1,000 chance. You can also, of course, read the 95% confidence interval, and 2 stars is the equivalent of, has its own 99% confidence interval as well. However, one of the things to really note about p-values is that as your sample size gets bigger, almost everything is significant. So if we measured that every single person in France and every single person in Britain, there would be a difference in heights. Even if there's no difference actually between them, right? Of any magnitude, of any particular meaning. And that's because things can be significant but not very big, basically. And the other side of things, that some things can be very significant and have a really big effect. Like losing a job makes you depressed. You know, that correlation is very, very big. You know, getting someone treat you rudely at the shops, not so much. Maybe it has a little effect on your mood, but maybe not for long. the way we measure effect size, which I think we've already briefly done, but I'll come back to it again, is we look at the magnitude. And turns out we use these words like small, medium, and large. For Pearson's R, you can use these numbers. Young's would disagree and probably say it's bigger, like it's more small is still up to 0.3 and medium is up to 0.5 and large would be 0.7 and above, whatever. The main thing for us to know, which we talked about I think last week or the week before, was that we can actually turn these into numbers that are a little bit more meaningful for us by squaring them. So for Pearson's R, if we square it, what we actually get is the percent of variance potentially explained by the other variable, right? And so if we get a Pearson's R of 0.1 and we square that, it's like 10, Pearson's R of 0.1, 10%, 10% of 10%, 1%. It's a 1% of variance. And so these two things have a Pearson's R of 0.1. They explain about up to 1% of the variation in each other. If something has a Pearson's R of 0.5, multiply that by itself, about 25% of the variation in one is potentially explainable by the variation in the other. These are much more useful and we always take note of them. And note in my research, my R-squareds are incredibly tiny in many of my own data sets and analysis as well, but that's why. Yes?
So you want to translate that to kind of
Interpretable.
Yeah, like theoretical kind of.
Can I show you, or can I Google something for you and and show you visually what it means?
Yeah.
Let me visually show you. I think no, so this is great, yeah. So let me visualize it for you. So visualization of Pearson's R. Images. There is this amazing figure. Okay, let me just try. I'm pretty sure it's in Wikipedia. This one. This is my favorite image in the whole wide world. Not quite, but it's pretty close. Open image in new tab. For this, it's my favorite. They are correlation coefficients. Actually, there's another one I want to show you. Nothing going on, nothing going on. These are all nothing going on, though there are clearly patterns. That's the point. There are many patterns that don't get captured by Pearson. But 0.4, there's a huge, like if you get 0.4 Pearson, you're like, woo! But look at that. It's still, there's a lot, it looks a lot more like a cloud than it does like a straight line. 0.8, there's still a lot of variation there. You know, if you think about correlation between things that we take for granted, like, you know, politics and income or something like that, it's probably closer to this, which means there's a huge amount of variation. There's a lot of different things going on. Yep? Is that helping? If I can just, let me see if I can find, there's one other one that is even, oh well. There's another one that actually has it for every single level, and it's quite, like for every 10%, and it's just amazing how you can hardly see anything until it gets up to about 0.4. 0.1 looks a lot like 0. So how do we calculate it in R? So this is a simple one. So let's just do one. core test. If we put core test into here, and it's just between two, this is between rural and urban. And again, it looks like the other ones. Things to look at here. First thing to look at is, of course, the. Oh, so actually, read it. What do you make out from this? Where is it? What is it? How, can anyone read this? I mean, it's
So p value?
yeah.
That's what it's.
Well, this whole thing. This is a Pearson's correlation output. Anyone make any sense of it?
So it explains 2%, or up to 2%.
2%? That's the Pearson's R, the square of that.
Oh, okay.
What's the square of 2%? It's like it's like nothing. It's like 0.004%. It's like 4,000 or 10,000 or something. But before we go to that, we look to there. What does that tell you? It's not significant. And then we've got a confidence interval here. What do you notice about that confidence interval?
It's quite a big area.
It's not that big, actually.
I mean, like, difference.
The difference here? There's something else that's even more important. Okay. When we say the 95% confidence interval, when something's significant, the 95% confidence interval has to not include what? The 90 when a 95% confidence interval is for something that is statistically significant, right? So the one we saw before, it was between 0.8 and 0.12. Remember that? That confidence interval has to not include something. What does it have? If it's significant, it doesn't include 0. Why? Do you get it? You get it. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. What is the null hypothesis? What is the null hypothesis for almost every statistical test? Okay, I'll go back to this. Let's go back. Here. The null hypothesis is that there is no relationship. Yeah? The null hypothesis is that there is no relationship. 0. So, our hypothesis test, the true correlation is not, also no hypothesis, not equal to 0. So our null is that it's equal to 0, alternative it's not equal to 0. So we're confident 95% of the time that, or we have expressing it badly. We are confident that we would get these results 95 times out of 100 repeated, or that the true population parameter would be within these bounds 95 times out of 100 if we repeated this. And it's statistically significant if the 95% confidence interval does not include 0. I'm expressing it very badly. I apologize. No. Did you get it or no?
So it doesn't have 0. This means that it's 95%.
And then it's significant. If it doesn't include 0, if the 95% confidence interval doesn't include 0, then it's significant. If it doesn't include 0. And so here, look at this. It includes 0. Right, so the key thing about this is saying, you look at the 95% confidence interval, it doesn't actually matter whether this is 0.0001 and minus 0.001. What matters is that one's minus and one's plus. Right? Because in between a minus and a plus is 0. And 0 is our null hypothesis.
So does that mean like a 95%, 5% chance it could be also could be 0?
No, there's a 95% chance that it lies between there.
Yeah.
And there is, yes.
They includes no correlation relationship.
That's right, yes. The p-value expresses the chance that it is the chance that so there's a 17% chance that the p-value, that the true correlation is 0 or below. That's what that says.
So if p-value is really small, in that case, we still have
Okay, I'll ask you this. Let's say the p-value is 0.0498, something really small. What would you expect the confidence interval to look like? I'll give you a hint, right? This is the confidence interval for something that is, say, p equals 0.17, correct? This was 1. This is our confidence interval for something where p is less than 0.0000000. This is why we got rid of scientific notation, right? Over here. Now, these are 95% confidence intervals. So, what would you expect the 95% confidence interval for that to look like? Maybe it might. I'll say one of them just say here, we don't really know because it's. But the other edge would be where? Just before 0. Because the 95% confidence interval almost includes 0, but not quite.
So it's because p is.
Well, they're different measures. No, it's not because p is nearly 0. It's because they are different measures of the same thing, basically. But yeah, maybe let me just take you through. I've got a series of correlations where we can look at ones that get more and more significant. Is that all right? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but that way we can see the different examples.
Anyway, on this, the big things to know, if I can just point them out. T, that is also, in this case, because it's such a big vector, Z score, so that is the number of standard deviations 0 is away from, this is the number of standard deviations. This is away from 0. Remember the magic number is 2, so it's smaller than 2, or 0.19 here.
We'll run the next correlation test.
Can I? All right, I'll just. Did it not work?
It works, but
all right. Yes, they get more and more significant as we go through this. So let's run the next one. So this one is highest qualification and likelihood of voting. Oh, sugar. So yeah, what well, you can interpret this. What are the things that tell us? Remember we said there are measures of statistical significance and there are measures of effect size. Yeah? What are the measures of statistical significance in this? How would you read them? Okay. So p-value, what about the p-value? Everyone gets one, so p-value is what? How do you know? How do you read it and what does it let you know? It's called the zeros, which tells you what? How would you state it? Null hypothesis? Yeah. We can reject the null hypothesis. The probability that the null hypothesis is true is whatever it is. Okay. What other things on here are measures of that variability? Yep.
Yes, there's 95% confidence it's not going to be zero.
It doesn't come to zero. So the 95% confidence interval doesn't include zero. So we know that there's a 95% chance the population parameter is not zero. Boom! Nice. Yeah, what else?
So do we have a correlation with very small p-value but 95% confidence equals zero?
No. Yeah, but then it wouldn't be significant.
So you
So remember there's effect size. So you can have a very small effect size, tiny effect size, yeah, but it could be on a gigantic data set, and it would be significant. But the 95% when we know it's not significant, it is significant because the 95% confidence interval wouldn't incorporate zero. It always, it's not. If it incorporates zero, it doesn't. It's not significant. Yep. If that includes zero, not significant. If this is less than 0.5%, more than 5%, not significant. If this number here is what? Sorry, so the third number, the third thing on here that tells us, yeah.
Question?
Yes.
So, but they have to be together. It's not that.
No, these are three independent ways of saying exactly the same thing. This is like Jesus, God, and the Holy Spirit. They are the one thing, they're just in different forms.
Yeah, but my question is, so that means that all of them will tell us exactly the same thing.
Yes.
In the sense that if value is significant, this means that what we see down the confidence interval will be similar.
Yes.
And the T test as well.
Yes. All three of these are different ways of saying exactly the same thing. You know, they're like 2 and the square root of 4 and 1 plus 1. They're just different ways of saying 2.
So if I want to see only the T test that is A from A3 and don't have the other things, how you know that is significant without?
I've already said, okay, so you just see this, how do you know? Tell me, what's the rule? What's the rule with T or Z scores? No, what's the, we almost always use 5%. That's just so 1.86, yeah, that's it, 96, yeah, 96 is 96, yeah, 196. But what is it? We round to one significant figure, it is 2. It is 2. Is that bigger than 2? 8 point, it's huge. 1%, you know what the 1 in 1,000 chance is? I think it's 2.6 or something, or 3.
Yeah, so that probability test, if it's more than 2, that means that it's significant. Less than 2 is
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. So this one more than 2. This one more than less than 0.05. Awesome. This one doesn't include 0. You're getting it. I'm so happy. So this is good. This is like really breakthrough stuff. It's very good. Yeah.
So it's not possible for them to say.
No, they can't contradict each other. Not in this case because they literally are mathematical variations of each other. In this case, they could, if they were measured in different ways, they could, but these are all just different ways of saying exactly the same thing. Okay, so that is, what are the two things we're interested in? Significance and effect size. What's the effect size? Yeah, how do you know? Well, 0.14, which, what percent, what does that mean?
What is the effect size?
What's the effect size? What's the effect size? I mean, what is the thing that we can use to get a sense of effect size? Yes. It's that. Yeah, it is. It's the correlation. 0.14, and then you could square it. I mean, you can use different. It's all rules of thumb, right? Rules of thumb, like, you know, not very accurate. Remember, so one of the rules of thumb was 0.1, 0.2, small. Fine. Right? The other thing is you can think about, well, 0.1, square that, 1%. 0.2, square that, 4%. Somewhere between 0.14, somewhere in between. So it's about 2 to 3% of variation of likelihood of voting is explained by your highest qualification.
Okay, 2 to 3%. What do you took that 2 to 3% from?
I squared that. But actually, the way I squared it is I just squared 0.1, 1%, squared 0.2, 4%, somewhere in between. Because 0.1 for 14, what's 14 times 14? My brain just melts.
So can you say again what that means? 2% to 3% is what?
2 to 3% of the variation in, say, likelihood of voting, right? Which is like that one, if it's not compulsory, it is that the variation in that co-varies with highest qualification, like did you finish your 10, your 12, uni, TAFE, graduate degree, etc. Yeah? It's not that much. Okay, we're good? And I wanted to teach you factor analysis tonight. Next week. This is good. I'm so happy. This is good. Okay, so how much do internet skills make a difference? Anyone want to take a guess? Yeah, it's not the same, but it's something. So I think this is the score where you got the score. You got like a 1 for each of the things you've done, like used an attachment, downloaded an attachment, watched a video, used email, used a browser or something, right? So 1 to 4. Who wants to interpret? Have fun. We're going to try. Come on, tell us. As you can try, how do we know this is significant, or is it significant? What are the 3 ways? Yeah, so what do we know from the p value?
Under 0.05.
Okay, yeah, what else?
The confidence interval.
Yeah, tell me. How do we know? What do we know from that?
It doesn't include 0.
And this? And it's what? More than 2. Boom. Okay. All right. Let's go for the quintuple or whatever. Effect size. What would you say is how do you know the effect size of internet skills on likelihood of voting? Very close. Anyone want to? Okay. Phone a friend.
Yeah.
Phone a friend.
With the convection number, then you just square it.
You square this, yeah. So you could take this and then you could square it. And what is it? 0.08. What does that tell? What we can say? We can use the first rule, which is just small, medium, or large. That's small, medium, or large. Often one of the things you've got to always watch is where the decimal place is. So remember, small was 0.1, right? So this is smaller than 0.1. Right, so then 8, yeah, multiply 8 over 64, it's about 0.6% of variation in likelihood of voting, to explain by how much you use the internet, if you don't control for anything else. No, 0.6, like basically 0.5%. Nothing, right?
Well, just from what you asked the others, the old people vote a lot, and a lot of them wouldn't have internet skills.
Exactly, yeah. They're like, you whippersnappers.
You have people in countries where you don't have to vote, young people much less likely to vote usually than people.
Well, look at all the people who can use mobile phones and you hope they're not voting. Sorry, I joke.
Some of those people, if they're commenting on those articles, they probably are.
Okay, here we go. Ready? Next. So this one is political knowledge and likelihood. So political knowledge is how well you did in that quiz. So what do we expect as social scientists? I think it's going to be very strong. Do you think it's going to be very strong or not? Anyone want to say it's not going to be very strong? Okay, so let's run it. Control Enter. Boom. Okay. Go. Significance? I don't know significance. And it's 25. It's gigantic. 1.5. 1. And this one, effect size, which is what would you judge that as? 9%? Oh, he can do maths in his head. I'm so impressed. Very good. Yeah, it's about 9%. Exactly. 10%. 10%. That's huge, right? So 10% of variation. Still not that much, but it's probably a lot. All right. Very good. Okay, last one. I think this is the last one. Interest in politics. I think I'll give you a hint. I think this is huge. And it's actually negative, but I think that is just because of the way that one of them is coded. I think interest in politics as it goes up. Yeah. But it's huge, right? So 25%, now 0.5, like 25% of variation. So just actually caring about politics is the thing that drives things. We good? Yes, we have not had a break. I'm so sorry. We take a quick 5-minute break. Yeah, toilet, all that. Go. How's the pay? The class all right today, right? You like this? Where is there a bathroom outside?
Yeah, right across.
You're right to notice the words. Right in front.
What's wrong? Oh, you're busy, like, so when's your assignment due? What other classes are you all taking? None. What classes are you taking? Don't know. Sociology? All right. Shall we do this and we'll try and now we're up to pretty pictures, which is the fun bit actually. So how do I I got a little speech here. So actually the stuff that we've done there, you don't actually use for reporting your data. And the main thing we do that is so that you understand what it means. And so you can, that was a good exercise. But to be honest, what we will do most of the time is just report a correlation table or lots of those statistics with some stars and some numbers, and you're sort of supposed to look through it and understand what's going on. So what we're going to do for this last bit is show how to present these correlation tables really nicely. Young has converted me to these SJ packages, which is part of my workload for me is that I had this whole course written last year, but none of it was written in SJ packages. It was written in a whole lot of other different R packages, and so I have been converting it all across so that it's consistent with what you've been taught. But I am converted, and so why do we recommend SJ packages? They are a particular way of doing R, but I'll just go through them very briefly. There actually just was this one guy in Germany who puts them all together. He's a pretty epic human being. You can go look him up. I think it kind of stands for straitjacket in German, like Straitjacket or something like this. But I think the idea is that it forces you to do it in the right way, and then you always get good data and good paid tables and all this sort of stuff. So why do we like SJ? It's got labeled data and SPSS and data compatibility, which just means that your values are labeled always and they're quite nice. It's very easy to do the data manipulation, so I could show you, if I showed you the way that a lot of the things that we do with like recodes are done in classic R, it's a bit of a nightmare in comparison, and it's very non-standardized. There are a huge range of functions. I've been amazed as I was looking at it over the weekend. Like you can do, this guy has programmed in things like lots of different types of regressions, lots of marginal plots plotting marginal effects, which is like an econometrics type concept, factor analysis, dendrograms of clusters, all this stuff that might not mean much to you, but they're actually often very commonly used in statistics, and he's just got them all there, and they're beautiful. So it's really nice. The commands are much more intuitive to use, as I've said, and also they're compatible with what's called the tidyverse. So dplyr and tidyr and a series of other ggplot2. These are all run by the people who actually own RStudio, the package that we run R inside of, and all the people who work there. And tidyverse is a nice way of keeping your data clean and tidy, and it's compatible with all that. And the last thing is that many R packages will do something fancy, but then they'll basically eat your data, right? So you can do what they can do, but no more. And what we're going to learn today is that all of this stuff has been built so that it makes ggplot, like which is one of the graphics, the most advanced graphics plotting packages, easier to use when you use the sjplot. But if sjplot doesn't have anything, you can still use almost everything that is in ggplot on those sjplots and expand them, right? Similarly, you can make your tables like the ones that we've seen like from summary tools, but actually with sjplot, you can modify them all with what's called cascading style scripts, which is an HTML formatting, which means you can put almost any amount of color and bells and whistles onto those tables as well. Now, you probably don't want to do that, but if you do at any stage in your life, it points to a very good package. Does that make sense? Anyway, I'm just explaining why I'm convinced by it. And it's also, I think, something worth understanding. In a sense, you're not Christians, you're like Catholics. You're not Catholics, you're a particular brand of that. Like, you're not just learning So I think I've got it up here. Do I have it up here? No, I don't know where I put it. Okay. So we're going to learn, there are really two things that, which I think I've already said, but I'll say it again. There are two types of outputs that we're going to see today, and they are completely different. One is HTML tables that are great for copying into Excel and so forth. The other one is the plots, which are graphics and figures, which are beautiful, but you can't touch them, basically, except for screenshotting them. So we're going to learn first how to make the tables. The function is sjt.core. That's for tables. sjp.core is for making the graphics. So they're very similar. They have very different commands. So we're going to do some data analysis on the Young's local areas of government crime data. We'll load it in. This is just a simple function I wrote. You don't need to know it, but basically I said, what's the column name of the first column? That's where it is. And what's the column name of the last column, or the column number? I put them in there, and then I've just extracted it, because actually the crimes data set has all this stuff like Gini coefficients and all this other data for each local government area. But we only want the crimes for this. So this just extracts just the crimes, which is still about 20 variables. Yep. So let's run this bit of code. Copy, and then paste it into here. Control Enter. Now nothing has really happened in here, but now we have a variable up here, crimes, which I'll just double click on so we can view it. And assault, domestic violence, assault, non-domestic violence, sexual offense, robberies, broken to dwelling, break-in not to dwelling, motor theft, steal from motor vehicles, steals from store, steal from dwelling, steal from person, fraud, damage to property, harassment or threat, received stolen goods, other theft, arson, marijuana, weapons, trespass, off-cond, what's that? Offensive conduct. I think it's like swearing at police. Offensive conduct, probably pissing in public. Offensive language, swearing at a police officer. Liquor offences, drinking in public. What's brachavo? Oh, breach and apprehend violent disorder, like basically when you're not supposed to go near someone. Breach bail conditions. Resist or hinder an officer of the law. And transport, basically try and get a free ride on the train. Okay, it's actually relevant to what we're going to do now. So there we go. So that's what our data set looks like. we are now going to go back and we're going to make our first graphic. Now, this is the command. This is actually just one line of code, but I have laid it out so that you can look at how the specification. You don't need to, most of these are the default settings, but I've put them in there so you can really think about what it is, right? So, SJT crimes, fine. First thing always in all these in this tidyr universe, the first thing is the data set. Boom. Then, NA deletion. So there's missing data in this. Not every place has crimes for everything. There are two ways you can do deletion in a big correlation matrix. You can do, or actually with any data set, it's called pairwise and listwise. This is quite important to note because it comes up a lot. I'm just going to draw it for you. So, okay. You do a lot of favour when you do that with overhead yes. Here. So we have a data set. We have domestic violence and non-domestic violence, and we have transport, right? And we have data here. We have numbers here. We have missing data here, missing data here, missing data here, missing data here. Right. So missing data is here, 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 here. Right? Listwise deletion is when you delete every case, so it's if anything is missing. Right? So if we do listwise deletion, dead, 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 dead. We have 3 cases left in our data set. Yes?
So hypothetically, someone asks 9 out of 10 questions, go and delete all their cases.
That's right, exactly. So if you have a survey with 500 questions in it, there's no one who's answered everything. Unless they're like, and the people who did answer everything, a bit weird, right? Like, right? So, I say that, but it's true. It turns out that kind of like old people and people who are left wing are really good at doing surveys. They're a little bit too much into social science. Anyway, so with 3, it's okay. Pairwise deletion means that if the variable goes in to that particular statistical test, then it can only be analysed if it's complete. Right? So if I did, so with correlations only involve 2. So if we correlate DV and NDV, we can keep this one and this one, but not this one. We can keep this one and this one, but not this one and not this one. Right, it's only got 4 for that one. If we correlate these 2, then we can keep, so NDV and transport, you keep this one, no, no, yes, no, yes. Right, so we can keep 5 of them. Right, and I think, yeah, anyway, the point is that we keep a lot more data when we do pairwise deletion, right? But it also leads to funny things where the number of cases are different, right? Which means the statistical tests are a little bit different. So the pairwise for this is 4, the pairwise for that is a sample size of 5, the pairwise for this is a sample size of, yep, you got it, right? So pairwise is generally better. Why? Principle, it doesn't throw away data we don't need, but it can complicate things tiny. Correlation method Pearson, it turns out that the standard for this, I've told you Pearson's the way to do it. He has, not candles, ions. Spearmint as the standard. So you actually need to specify Pearson's. You can put a title here for your table. You can put variable labels, but we don't need them because we're generally using SPSS style data and SJ data with labels. This just stops you having long variable tables, so that's the number of characters. It said default is like 30 or 40, so I set it to 100, whatever. But just it turns out this data set has got really long labels. Wrapping, do you understand what wrapping is? Wrapping is like when it goes down to the next line. So if I have Nicholas Aragon, but I wrap it after 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it will look like this over 2 lines. Right? That's wrapping. Boring layout stuff, but it makes your tables look ugly if you don't get it right. But it's sometimes necessary. Because if you have it too long, then the labels go off. If you have it too short, you have big white columns. Show T shows the P values or not. This shows them as stars. If you put this as true as well, it will show them as numeric. This fades non-significant results, so they appear like grey. So that's kind of can look nice. So put that on true, so that like significant results in black, non-significant are in grey. Values, I don't even know what that means. I didn't put a comment there. Digits, 2 significant. You can look all these things are you can find them online in 2 seconds in Google. Triangle. Turns out that all correlation coefficients, correlation matrices, because correlation is non-directional, all correlation matrices have the same structure, which is they have, a set of ones down the middle. Why does it have ones down the middle? Why does it have a 1 down the middle? What is that 1? What's the correlation of DV with DV? And NDV? What's the correlation with anything with itself? Right now, also look at this. DV with NDV here, this, and NDV with DV, these are the same thing. So it turns out that there is a triangle in a correlation matrix, right? And so that's why this is called triangle. Triangle, you generally have a command. I don't know exactly what the command is here, but you would generally have 1 of 3 commands. You would have lower, upper, or both. Lower makes it all here and leaves these white, whatever, some people like that. Upper puts them up here and leaves these all white, whatever, and both gives you all the numbers, which can be easier for your eye to look at if you're trying to spot for a particular one. Okay. String diagonal doesn't matter. CSS, this is to put cascading styles through its code, basically HTML code. You don't need it, but sometimes it's nice. The encoding file, I think these are, encoding I think is I'm not sure what these are. File I think is so that you can save it to file as an HTML file. Viewer, this sends it to the browser so that when you run the code, it immediately pops it up in your browser rather than popping it up in the view in this little thing here, right? Well, anyway, and remove spaces, true, whatever. Anyway, that's what it looks like. If we zoom in, you can actually run. Why don't you all run that code? Actually, just run that code, and you should get this. Okay. Did anyone else run it? Did it work? Okay, so that means you haven't got SJPlots loaded. So type in library SJPlots. SJPlots has a capital P. So mine loads over here. I guess use viewer means putting it over in the viewer rather than the browser. But anyway, so just one thing. So yeah, when sometimes you're looking for your output, everyone just concentrate. This is an important point. You run this code, right? If you get a table, it will appear in viewer. if you're running a graphic, it'll appear in plots. And on both of them, there's a button that you always want to press. In Viewer, you press this one here, and that pops it up in Chrome or whatever your default browser is. Did it work? This little button here, it's like it's a browser and an arrow. It's a beautiful button. In plots, just to show you, there is this button Zoom, which we'll see in a second. Pops out your image, and that's really important for getting the nice, perfect screenshot you need. So, any yellow label or orange label? Yellow, yellow, yellow. Okay, awesome. Are we yellow or orange? Orange. I don't know. Let's see what happens. What's happening? So to pop it out, you hit that. Have you popped it out? Yes. Okay, so let's keep going. What is this? Sorry, I'm like. So. Okay, so last one. So how do we make a colorful plot? I'll just show you these and then you can run one of them. So this is the same setup code. This is an example of running sjp.core really ugly. It's very similar, but look at this. Oh, my data set looks horrible. Look, these are all in the wrong direction. This is all messy. This has got these little white ticks. I hate these little white ticks. It's got value. What is value? These are big writing. These are small writing. So these are some simple things. So in sjplot, set theme is a very good function with base equals blank theme, and that just gives you a much cleaner theme. Theme meaning, like in this case, it will make the letters, all the text the same size. Then I've run this. I think I've explained what each of them does. It's very similar, but just a few to note. This is the color scale for cells. There turns out to be lots of different color scales you can use, but this goes from red to blue. And then one of the powerful things, which we'll learn more about over the coming weeks, is that you can use this plus symbol with ggplot. ggplot2, it's called ggplot2, whatever, ggplot notice this plus is actually outside of the bracket. So almost everything else we've done so far, you run a command by having a function, open bracket, and then a series of what do we call arguments or settings, yeah? But now it turns out with ggplot, we can use this plus, and then we can put more settings. And so look at this. We've got another setting, which is a ggplot themes. This is one that this is a weird one. Like, this is why ggplot2 is a bit ugly. What the hell does that mean? Point is, this rotates your axis, the bottom axis, to 90 degrees and makes it sit up nicely against it. Pretty. Fine. A lot of these, you just run them. This one puts a label field, puts a title on the legend. This one here centers the legend title, whatever. And this one gets rid of those ugly ticks and makes the bar a bit nicer. So if you look at the bar here, it's this little ugly thing. The bar on this one, if you run it, looks really nice. So you can see how all of a sudden we have a pretty, yep. And I'll just show you the last one. This is exactly the same, but I just want to show you. You can use lots of different geome colors. You can Google geome colors and you'll see them. But this is one called Spectral, and it's just quite pretty. That's all I want to show you, is that you can make a very pretty graph. I don't know whether it's better or worse, but it's quite a good one. So can I suggest that everyone, as a last thing, we just go and run this bit of code? The last one, the spectral. We'll all try and make a spectral one and see if we can get it to appear. And then we'll go home. So just paste it in. Oh, God. SJT. And it appears over here. Error? Huh? Oh, yeah, it looks ugly as sin, right? Like, look at this. Mine's even worse. Has everyone got this? Now, this is what the zoom button's for. Click the zoom button. Zoom plus. Still ugly, but then you can resize it. Boom. I mean, that's still not perfect. Huh? It's pretty good. I don't know why it's prettier in...
In that case, you have to just increase frame resolution.
Huh?
Increase the computer's frame
You
resolution.
set export, and then in an export, you can put a...
As a PNG picture or something.
Yeah.
Say export the options.
All right, export here.
And copy to
Yeah, because then you have the corner there down, and you can expand it.
Oh, aren't you good? So go like this corner.
Yeah, and you can expand.
And actually we can make it much bigger. So here you go, 8,000. I think I'm going to break my computer.
Maybe 136 by 768. It's very specific.
Anyway, we will... I think that you've all got the point, and you can make your data look good. It's not doing it. It's actually not.
Set horizontal labels 45 degree. Yeah. To stations there.
That one is too big, actually. I just did that one. One of the other one, I'll just show you. Actually, there's one thing on that is very nice to note, which is that on this, there is a function here which is sort core, which isn't on the tables one. But this is actually sorted on the assault domestic violence, and then it's put very similar ones close together. So you can actually see what we're going to look at next. So what we're doing next week is we're doing factor analysis. So we're going to say, well, are there types of crimes? And it turns out there are 3 types of crimes. There are kind of these liquor offences, steal from person, these ones down here. There are, I think, these middle ones here, and there's these top ones. And you can sort of see them in the way that some of the patterns of colours work. Can everyone do me a favour and just write down what you liked and didn't like? Just very quickly on the bits of paper, and you can stick them on the board or hide them. If you need to leave, go. If you want me to give you these, I would just be it's very useful for me to know what you like and don't like, or what works and doesn't work.